Yes, what's up everyone? Homemade Madness, welcome back. New project time. This thing is getting a crazy makeover. Let's go. Yep, so ever since I was a little kid, I wanted my little Tikes car to have a bit more power, and in this video series I'm gonna make it happen. So as you've probably already seen, this thing is pretty small and there's just no way I'm gonna fit in here, let alone with an engine. So there have already been some other YouTubers trying to do this, upgrade a little Tikes car, and to get around the size problem they've extended the body or removed the top and just used it as a seat. And no offense guys, but come on. Doesn't even look like it anymore. So I think it's up to me to make things right, make it look proper, like a little Tikes car, once and for good. So I've been wanting to build this project for quite a while now, and it's just so fortunate that a couple of weeks ago I got a call from HBM Machines, which is a tool company based right here in the Netherlands, and they challenged me to build something for their Toolfest event. And as you might already know, you can't build anything without tools. So they already went ahead and sent me one hell of a tool. I'll show you later in the video, but they do also have massive discounts and special deals during the entire Toolfest month of May, so make sure to check them out. For now, let's talk about this thing and how it's gonna work. So over the last couple of weeks I've been measuring out this body and working it out in a 3D model like this. And let me tell you, making this 3D model was definitely not easy. So many double curved surfaces, so many features, it was a nightmare. The hardest thing I've drawn ever by far. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at all these sketches and planes I had to make just to make this model. But I gotta give it to myself, it turned out looking pretty good. So as you can see, I've thrown the happy face out of the window and make it look nice and mean. I made it much lower, slammed all the way to the ground, because this thing is gonna be tarmac use only. A big spoiler on the back and then some aggressive tires with some big flat wheel arches to fit them perfectly. Really finishes the look. So practically, how am I gonna build it? Well, the entire body is gonna be 3D printed, and I'll do it in a later video, but it's gonna be chopped up in many pieces and then glued together and covered with fiberglass. Should work just fine. So in this video I'm gonna make the steel roll cage frame thing, then take the engine out of my old 250 dirt bike, put it in there, make the driveline, which turned out a little bit more complicated than I wanted. I guess you're gonna have to watch it to find out exactly how I built it. Anyway, enough talking, I'm excited, let's start building. Alright, so like I said, first thing to make, metal frame or roll cage of the cart. And it needs to be made pretty accurately in order for the 3D printed body to fit around it later on. So, got my drawings. First thing to make is this underside of the frame with all this complicated bend tubing. I'm gonna use my homemade tube bender I built a couple of years ago to bend all this tubing. So, let's get started. And of course I'm gonna use my homemade CNC tube notcher, which I built in the previous video, to cut most of the tubing for this roll cage. But for some tubes it's actually easier to first bend them and then cut the notches. I can't fit bend tubing in my tube notcher, so I'm gonna have to do it the old school with some paper templates I made. Anyways, let's get some tube and get started. Oops. Alright, that's the first two tubes done. First one went pretty good. Second one, I messed up a little bit, made it too long, had to weld it together. Bit of shame, doesn't really matter though. They are similar and up to spec now, which is important. So the way I measure bend tubing is by extending the tube basically from both sides until I get to the apex of the outside corner and measure from there where my next bend should begin. And that works pretty well, and I got these nice and perfectly up to the dimensions of the drawing. So next up I need to make a notch in this end and cut this end off at the right length, and then we can put a tube across the top and finish the bottom frame. So like I said, got my paper templates, let's cut them out, wrap them around here and get out the angle grinder. Alright, that's the bottom frame done, and now I'm gonna work on the top bit, basically the roll cage. Okay, and that's my two main frame rails complete. They will go on something like this. But before I can mount them on there, I need to make these tubes, which go here. And these were the only two tubes in the entire frame, which have quite complicated bends in them, which means you had to cut the tube notches manually. But from now on, the tubes get a lot simpler, with mostly straight pieces or a single bend in them, which means I don't have to cut the notches by hand anymore. And I can use a machine I built in my previous video, my homemade CNC tube notcher. And for future projects I want to be able to cut every tube notch on my CNC tube notcher and then bend the pieces. But with this bender that just isn't gonna happen. So I'm currently already working on designing a new tube bender, which can handle a lot of different sizes in tube diameter and bend way more accurate. But that's for a later video. First, let's CNC notch some tubes. So if you haven't seen it yet, this is my homemade CNC tube notcher. I built it in a previous video, also made plans for it, so anyone can build it yourself. It's a really useful machine if you work with tubing a lot. So in here will go a handheld plasma torch, and then the tube will go in the middle here. And then it can spin the tube and feed it in and out simultaneously. And that way it can cut a notch or any other shape in the tube. And the idea of this machine is that you can put a long length of tube in here, and it can cut notches and cut tubes to length in one go, all from one piece of tube without me having to do anything. Alright, got everything turned on, ready to cut, let's do it. That's the first one. Okay, starting to look pretty good. Actually looks like the drawing. I had to do a little bit of clamping here and there to get everything nice and square. And like I mentioned, it's very important everything is assembled, well, pretty much perfect. Because of course the 3D printed parts will fit around the tubes, and if they're wrong, well, everything is wrong. So to make sure everything is positioned right, I first leveled the table completely in both directions, and then I can use the water level to check everything from the table, vertical up, and then measure against the tube. And of course I also have these measurements in the drawing, and then I use some clamps to force everything into alignment according to the drawing. So anyways, everything still fits. Tube notcher did a great job making these tubes for me super fast. And now it's time for the really fun stuff. All these small little tubes, and that means it's back to the tube notcher. Alright, so that's about it for the frame or roll cage. Went together really nice and smoothly. The homemade CNC tube notcher works like a dream. It made super quick work of all the notches. They turned out perfect, fitted the first try, and that meant I could build all of this in just one day. So it's only tacked together right now, and I'll fully weld it up later. But first I want to work on some other stuff. So before I can make this a rolling frame, I'm still waiting on the wheels to arrive, as well as some bearings for the rear axle. So I can't start with any of that stuff yet, but what I do have is the motor. So I guess let's get the motor, mock it up in the frame, see about where it's gonna go, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so this is the motor I'm gonna use. It's a 250cc 4-stroke engine, KTM, and this is actually my old dirt bike, which I've had for many years and rode a lot of times. I now have a new one, a Yamaha 250, so that makes this one perfect to use for something else. And believe me when I say this thing has had a pretty tough life. So anyways, last time I started it was looking at the stickers, summer of 2023, so almost 2 years ago. But I did put it away running, so let's see if it starts. No. Alright, that's a definite no. But to be fair, it does still have the gas from 2 years ago in it. So maybe it just needs a little help. Nice. Okay, maybe it needs a carb clean and some new gas. Alright, new fuel, new haircut and the carb clean later. Let's see if it runs. Let's take it for a test drive! Alright, seems to run pretty good. Definitely not perfect. I think it runs a little rich. I'll fix it later. For now, I know it runs. Let's take out the engine and put it in the frame. So the engine, like I said, regular 250cc 4-stroke dirt bike engine with 6-speed gearbox, manual clutch, kickstarter, no electric starter, and just a really compact and pretty light engine, but still very powerful. Should make around 30 to 40 horsepower, which is more than enough for this tiny frame. So that's that, and it's gonna go in the frame somewhere around here. And the main reason I want it in the back here on this side is because the Kickstarter is on this side, so I can extend it later to go outside the body and still kick it like that. Of course I can also push start it, but kickstart would be nice. But anyways, it fits really nicely in this corner, and the seat which I ordered should still fit around here. But there is one main problem with this setup, and that is that the rear wheel will be around here, which means the rear axle will be around here, right in the middle of the engine. So that basically gives me two options to solve this, and one is really simple, just move the engine forward or up to make room for the axle. And the other one would be a little bit more complicated by making like a jack shaft to go over the engine to transfer the power from this side to the other side. And I'm still not sure what option I'm gonna go for. One thing is for sure, I can't move the axle anymore because of the 3D printed body, and I want the wheels to fit nicely in the arches. So I guess to get started, let's cut some sheet metal bearing plates and start mucking up this rear axle. And as for the bike frame, I'm still not done with it. I'm gonna save it for a future project. Let's just say it's gonna have about the same power, but be a lot quieter. Stay tuned. Alright, I've been doing some real hard thinking and messing around, and I found the best solution, and of course it's the most complicated one. So I stole this seat off of the little John Deere tractor, and it's similar to the seat I'm gonna put in here later. I'll order a new one. And just messing around with it and sitting on it with the motor up here and to the front, the seat would have to go all the way around here, which is just very cramped. So instead I'm gonna mount the motor around here where it is right now. So with the engine mounted this way, it comes really close to the seat, but the seat can go next to it. And with the seat like this, it's just a little bit off-centered to the right, but I think it's worth it, because if I were to put it in the middle, it would have to come way further forward, and this will save me a lot of leg space and leg cramp later on while driving it. So that means the seat's gonna mount around here, and it's only a little bit off-center. Wouldn't be a problem. The weight distribution will be compensated by the engine, of course, being on this side. And it also still gives me plenty of space to do other stuff back here, like cooling, gas tank, wiring, stuff like that. And if I put the carb on there, you can see there's a hole right here, just perfect to put a jack shaft through. So there's gonna be a shaft spinning to around here. Then here will need to be another bearing with a chain coming down to this one. And then this one needs to be, of course, very strong, with the wheel sticking out quite far around here. A lot of torsion this way. So I'm gonna have to find a way to make this bearing super strong. And then for the other side, the drivetrain will drive the jack shaft, and then it will come back down here and drive this wheel. And that's about it. Pretty complicated. There's gonna be 3 axles in there, 3 sets of chains and gears and all kinds of other stuff, a lot of bearings. But it's the only way to make it work. It's a really small frame. I'm a pretty tall guy, need a lot of leg space, and I want to keep everything inside the body and make it look as clean as possible. So with that in mind, this is the way to do it. Okay, so that's more than enough talking for now. I've got a plan. Let's mount this engine with some sheet metal and then start working on this drivetrain. Okay, time for a little update. Got the motor mounted in place and mounted 2 side plates. Yep, so got these 2 bits of sheet metal on there, and the jack shaft fits through here like this, and as you can see it fits nicely under the carburetor right there, and it has some wiggle room so I can tension the chains later on. That's why there's a slot over here and the hinge point over there. And I actually had to cut these sheets twice. Made a little mistake. Yeah. Anyway, so that's where the jack shaft will go, in there. And then the power of the motor will go from here onto this sprocket, which will mount on there. Here will be another sprocket, and with the chain going back down into here, with the shaft coming out here, and this is where the wheel will be. And for the other side, pretty much the same. Sprocket on here, sprocket on there, wheel shaft on here, except this shaft is of course very short, so we'll have to make this very strong in a short bit, which will be a bit tricky. That's why I have this hole in this sheet here, so I can make a custom bearing plate to go in here, and then the sprocket will go right beside it. And then there will be another set of 2 bearings around here, and then the wheel around here. So talking about the wheels, I got them in. These ones. Looks pretty good, they will grip just fine. This thing is gonna be a wheelie machine later on. And then to make it even more complicated, I have another problem. I can't run a chain from here to here because it would hit this part of the engine. So what I'll have to do is extend this sprocket to come around here, and then the chain can run in there. But of course I just can't extend this shaft like that without it snapping the engine or something like that. So there will be another support bearing on there. So pretty complicated drive system in the end. Oh, I thought this was gonna be an easy project. Nope, not gonna happen. Doesn't really matter though. Makes it more interesting to build and to watch. So enough talking, let's start making parts to mount all these sprockets and bearings and shafts, which means it's to the lathe. So talking about the lathe, like I said, this project is in collaboration with HBM Machines. And to help me with this project, they've gone ahead and sent me this brand new metal cutting lathe. It's the biggest one they have. I've already been using it a little bit and I love it. It's not gonna replace my homemade lathe, which is right there, but it is gonna make its life a lot easier by doing a lot of work for it. And this has got some awesome features that just doesn't have. I'll show you some more of it throughout the video, but first, let's give it a try. Alright, so a little update. Let's start on this side. So this is where the right wheel will attach to. This is a bearing block I made, and as you can see, the sprocket is back here, just welded to the shaft. and I can still take it apart because, as you can see, these bolts come loose and then this plate comes off. And this hub can just slide off here and the axle can slide out too. And then the wheel will attach to this bit, of course, and I might have to make some gussets or something in here to make it a bit stronger, but I think it will work just fine. And this gear is going to be driven by this gear, which is mounted on these bearing blocks, which can move up and down a little bit to tension the chains. Also on this side. And down here is the drive shaft for the left wheel, which is still a bit too long, but I can just cut it off later. And what's important about this drive system is that I want to be able to take everything apart. So I can weld this sprocket and this sprocket, but I can't weld the sprocket on here because of course then I can't get the shaft out anymore and these bearings off. Same for this shaft, I can weld this sprocket to it and then this bearing can come off on this side. But I can't weld anything on here because then this bearing won't be able to come off anymore. And that's the same on this side, of course I can't weld anything on here or this won't be able to come off. And like I said, on here too. And to make all of these removable parts possible, I have an idea. It's a technique I've also used on the toy tractor and some other projects. It starts with a sleeve which fits around the shaft like this and mounts flush with the shaft, and then a sprocket or a wheel will be attached to the sleeve. This one will be welded to it, but of course the wheels will be with bolts. And then to lock it in place but still have it removable, first what I'm gonna do is tack it to the shaft on the back there, and then we're gonna drill holes right on the edge where the sleeve meets the shaft. And then I'll tap a thread in this hole and I can put a long bolt in there. And this will of course stop the rotation of the sleeve in relation to the shaft, but also stop it from coming off this way. And I can just do it 3 or 4 times and make it very strong and still removable. So really a very simple technique, and with 3 or 4 long bolts in there it will be plenty strong. Of course you can only use it on the end of a shaft, so not in the middle. So for the middle I have this, a taper lock unit, which works with a keyway on this shaft. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be strong enough, but I'm not sure about just a single keyway on the shaft. But I guess we'll find out. Anyways, enough talking, let's get it done. Alright, so that's it for the chains and the gears. All 3 chains are on there and it works really nice and smooth. As you can see, this axle spins same direction, same speed as this one, and it looks pretty beefy, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be strong enough. One thing I do want to do is add another bolt down here or something to help keep this up, because it will probably slip in this slot as it is now. Same for this side. But I do still have one little problem, which was to be expected. This chain is tight. This chain is pretty tight, but this chain isn't. And I can't tension it anymore because of course these two are already tight. I can't move the engine, there's just no space. So what I'm gonna have to do is make a little chain tensioner right here. Of course, under load, this will be the pulling side, this will be the sloppy side, but when you brake on the engine or the engine fails or anything, there's going to be quite a lot of stress on this side. So this tensioner better be very strong. So the plan, later on I want to add 2 strips here to also use this engine mount to mount it even better. And my thought for this chain tensioner is to leave it sticking out on this side a little bit longer, probably also mount it to this plate later on, and then make a sleeve around here, which will be the pivot for my chain tensioner. Mount the bearing in here, push against there, probably pull on it towards the front to actually tension it. So that's the plan, let's make it, and then finally the drivetrain is complete. Okay, so a little top tip, if you're buying gears and you know you're gonna have to put them on the lathe and the gear count doesn't really matter, then it's easiest to buy a gear with a tooth number that's divisible by 3, in this instance 12. This way you can always clamp it in a 3-jaw chuck while keeping the hole perfectly centered without having to switch to like a 4-jaw or make a custom sleeve around it. Just the easiest way. Little top tip. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Really got quite a lot done. Super pleased with how this is turning out. And next video, which is gonna be out next week, I'm gonna mount the front wheels, mount the steering, hook everything up like the shifter, throttle pedal, brake pedal, mount the seat, do the gas tank, do the cooling, electrical, get it running, and then we can take it for a test drive, see how it rides. So, see you then.